Well, one of the many new initiatives passed by Vermont lawmakers and signed by Governor Scott this spring is Act 63. It will legalize the already pretty widespread practice of sports wagering. Vermont's Department of Liquor and Lottery will regulate this new business. Act 63 directs the commissioner to negotiate revenue sharing deals now with up to a half dozen companies. Sports books, they call them, two of the best known, FanDuel and DraftKings. It'll be open to Vermonters 21 and older to place their bets on just about anything around the end of the year. Joining us this morning from Ontario, Jeff Zachodny. He's a sports betting journalist with Covers, and it's a pleasure to have you with us to help walk us through this brave new world.
Thank you for having me.
Vermont, we're talking because Vermont has become the 38th, I guess, U.S. state to legalize sports wagering. So we're hardly in the vanguard on this one, but you've taken a look at some of the regulatory issues that are baked into this authorizing legislation. Does it look about the way it operates in other states?
Well, the interesting thing about sports betting in the U.S. is you did have that U.S. Supreme Court decision in 2018 that really freed up states to legalize sports betting, but to do it in their own way. And so in every state, it looks similar, but there are these sorts of differences on a state level that you do see. So Vermont's model that it's chosen is one that bears resemblance to other states such as New York and New Hampshire, but it's not necessarily the same way a state like Ohio has done it, where it's a much more straightforward licensing model. Whereas, in Vermont, the decision was to go with a competitive bidding process that will be overseen by the Department of Liquor and Lottery and allow operators to come forward and try to put forward their best offer for what they think that they could share with the state in terms of revenue as well as their technical capabilities.
So it's going to be a negotiation over the next several months with the projected launch end of the year, first of next year. But now, and I don't know much about your industry, I'm the first to concede, but we've heard of FanDuel and DraftKings, but how many sports books are there? How many online options are there?
We're definitely up to more than a few dozen operators that are doing business in various places in the U.S. And there are some of those big name operators, such as the ones that you mentioned there, the FanDuels, the DraftKings, the BetMGMs of the world. You have operators that are connected to brick and mortar casino companies, such as Caesars. Those entities pop up, and including on a regional level in places where there are local casinos that want to have their own betting apps. So you'll see some of those more regional operators pop up. And then you have some up and comers that are, trying to challenge some of the incumbents with different sorts of business models and offerings. So these would be your Fanatics of the world, the sports merchandise seller that's getting into betting. You have, operators such as Circa and Superbook that are known for having, sharper lines and catering to bigger bettors. So it's become a very big and diverse industry. Just by terms of operators, in that you have people jockeying for position with different types of business models.
When the Republican governor signed this bill into law, he issued a statement that said, we know a lot of Vermonters already participate in the marketplace, and bringing it above board, under a legal system will provide new consumer protections. I'm wondering if, I guess, implied in that statement is that this is pretty popular, whether it's legit or not. Do you have any sense as to how many people participate in sports betting?
There are some signs, across the U.S. We've seen a pretty wide take-up in states that have legalized it. We're talking about billions of dollars being wagered every month by people in the U.S. In Vermont specifically, there have been some indications of what the interest might be. So, for example, there's a company called GeoComply. They provide services to online sportsbooks, including helping to determine the location of bettors to ensure they're in a jurisdiction where they're allowed to bet. And what they told members of the Vermont legislature when they did their deputations to some committees there was that they saw more than 100,000 attempts to try to access legal sports books from within Vermont during the NFL season. So this was more than 100,000 efforts by people in Vermont to access sports books that were outside the state. Most of those attempts were aimed toward New York, which suggests you did have a fair amount of interest from people in the state to gain access to those legal books. What's murkier is the usage of offshore and illegal sports betting operations by Vermonters, which is something that lawmakers are concerned about as well. One of the goals of this legalization effort is to pull betting that's going on in unauthorized channels into those state authorized channels. So that's something that that is suspected to be going on in significant enough numbers to merit the legalization effort in general. Exactly how much you see of that gray and black market wagering is harder to nail down because people just don't tend to report illegal activity as they would illegal activity.
Sure. Is there what's the most popular sport to wager on?
Football is king for sports betting in the U.S. You see it in the numbers that are reported by legal states that the wagering numbers are much higher during football season, and they come down in the spring and summer. You have a little bit of bump for March Madness, college basketball, but once you get into essentially the days that we are in right now, the wagering numbers get a lot quieter because there is no NFL or college football on which to wager.
Yeah, but you can wager on golf. I understand that's one of your favorites. Is that will player X 3-putt on hole 16? I mean, it gets down to the granular level.
You can get down into some more granular markets, like but it would be more like if there's a threesome playing, which of those three is going to win the next hole? Who's going to make birdie, the other two make par, that would win. But also, the golf betting markets are pretty robust. That's the sport that has embraced legal sports betting by partnering with operators. And so you'll see, if you go right now, you could look at the odds for the British Open on who's going to win the British Open or just the Open Championship, I think is the official name. But, who's coming third, who's going to place 10th. You'll have matchups between golfers you can wager on. So that's just kind of an indication of the depth of some of these markets for sports that maybe they're not the most popular in the U.S., but they're getting a lot of attention by operators.
Well, if you're someone like me and you don't understand this system, I got some good advice when I went into a casino for the first time. He said, don't wager on a game you don't understand. For people who don't understand sports books, online sports books, how do you learn?
I think you could, I hate to self-promote, but there are sites such as Covers that provide education to bettors if you want to access it to try and learn more about betting before you go and place a bet. Operators are trying to be user-friendly because they want people to be comfortable with the bets they're making. I mean, it could prompt some sort of regulatory criticism if sports books are offering betting markets that people don't understand. So there is some baseline information being provided there by the operators themselves. So it falls to the consumer a bit to inform themselves before going to these sites. But there are a lot of resources out there, and those resources are growing alongside the legal market as that has grown.
Jeff Zakotny is a sports betting journalist with Covers.com. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thanks for your help.
Thanks for having me on.
One of the unusual provisions of Vermont's new law, Jeff told us, is that in Vermont, you won't be able to place a bet using your credit card. We'll be back in a moment.